humans of the internet. I hope you all are doing well and having a good September, which is Suicide Prevention Month. Before I start this video off, I want to preface it by saying if you are triggered by talk of suicide and mental illness, please protect your mental health and click away and come back for the next video. But this video is a heavy topic. We are talking about suicide, we are talking about suicide prevention as well, and we will be talking about the traumatic events that I have had experienced due to my brother taking his own life. I will be linking South African helplines in the description box and in the comments. So if you are struggling, or if you know of someone who is struggling, please go check the description box. There will be resources there for mental health. That said, I have a paint by numbers here in front of me. I am going to be doing that while I'm talking to you guys. We know I'm ADHD, but I struggle to talk about these really heavy topics when I'm not doing something while talking, if that makes sense. And then also, side note, my pictures are finally up in my flat. I'm like officially moved in, yay! And Rainy is on the couch there behind me. Maybe he'll come say hi now. But yeah, this video is not my brother's story. I told my brother's story on a video by the Real Stigma Project, which explains more in depth his perspective. Although I obviously don't know exactly what he was going through, I was very close to him. This is the perspective of a person who themselves have had suicidal thoughts and attempted suicide and has now lost their best friend to suicide. But yeah, it's not an easy topic, and I am making this video because I think it's super important that we don't just discard these feelings or concerns, but we talk about them, and I hope that it will make you or anyone you know more comfortable to reach out in the future when they do need help. So, I have multiple disorders, mental illness disorders. I have around 9 disabilities. Those include autism, bipolar disorder, depression, anxiety, OCD, ADHD, and like a couple of others. I also have an eating disorder, which I'm in recovery from, and I've been in recovery for quite some time. But I've had my fair share of mental health challenges. Raindrop! Relax, boy. And I had probably one of the hardest years of my life last year. First of all, I was a matric, which in and of itself is quite intense. Raindrop, it's okay, boy. Someone's outside, grabbing his attention. I was a matric, which is stressful. But then secondly, I had a brother who was going through his first bipolar, depression, and mania. There was no time. For the 9 months leading up to my brother's death, he was always either manic or depressed. He never actually plateaued. So from March of 2021 until December 2021, literally the 30th of December 2021, my brother was going from depression to mania and so forth. My last suicide attempt was beginning of March 2021, which was difficult, and I adjusted medication and I went through therapy, and we changed things in my life in order for me to be able to function and not have those thoughts and feelings anymore. And I'm coping. It was the last attempt. I'm very proud of myself for how far I've come, and it's not easy, but I did it. Now, what I want to get across with this video is that these thoughts and feelings, you can be on medication, you can have everything perfect in life, but you can still have suicidal thoughts. You can still feel like you want to end things. And guess what? Some of us have had those thoughts and feelings for so long that we don't see them as abnormal. I mean, the first time my first thoughts of killing myself were back when I was around 11, which is a baby. I'm a baby at 11. And it's a hard thing to go through. And now I'm 19, almost 10 years later, and those thoughts still pop up in my brain. I am happy. I am in no way a threat to myself or others, but that does not mean those thoughts disappear. That's not how it works, unfortunately. The thing is with these feelings and thoughts is you have to learn to recognize them and go, hey, these are intrusive thoughts, and I'm not going to act on them, but they are still really, really difficult at times to deal with, and they do sometimes convince you that they are your thoughts, not intrusive thoughts. And that's something really difficult to live with. Now, as someone who has been in that situation multiple times of wanting to end it all, I can tell you I understand why my brother did it. I don't agree with it, and I miss him tremendously, and I wish I could have changed it, but I do understand what he was feeling. And honestly, I don't think you can truly understand why someone took their own life. You can't ever do that. And I think you can even less so truly comprehend that fact if you yourself have not been in that position yet. If you yourself have not stood there thinking those things, feeling those feelings, being ready and truly ready not to wake up again. I remember in the 9 months that David was struggling, there were days he would cry on my bed because we couldn't let him out of our sight for basically 9 months. He would cry on my bed and say he would pray at night that he won't wake up the next morning. And I really relate to that. I had a time in my life where I did that. And it's horrible because you're in this state of mind where you truly do not want to have a future and you truly do not want to plan for a future. But at the same time, you're so scared and you're not staying. You get to a point where you're not staying behind because you want to still live, or you're scared if you die that you're scared of death, you're scared of living. You get to a point where it's so terrifying to have to think that there is even a future, that you even need to plan for tomorrow's lunch because you really do not want to be there anymore. And for me, and I know for my brother as well, there was a time where I was only alive because of the people I knew I would leave behind and the hurt they would feel if I left, because I did not love myself. And I know he did not love himself. And you put on a smile and you go to school and you do the work, and sometimes you even study hard for an exam a month away, not because you plan on being here a month from now, but because you don't know what else to do. And you know, if you have a moment to yourself, a moment just to think of what you can do right here, right now, you know you wouldn't last past today. And sometimes you really want to keep fighting and you don't want to do it, and you feel so overwhelmed by these thoughts and this idea that nothing will ever change and you will never feel better, that it feels like it's suffocating and you don't need to do anything because the life is being drained out of you already. But at the same time, there's this small part of you that can't be certain that death is better. Or at least for me there was. I think when David passed, he was so certain that nothing could be worse than the feelings that he was feeling. And that broke me. That broke me that as a sister, as his best friend, I couldn't help him. I couldn't save him. It broke me that I knew that he was suffering and I couldn't do anything about it. And I want to bring up something else here as well. I say last year was one of the hardest years of my life because my health was really bad. I was struggling with depression. I was struggling with anxiety. I was having to go to school and having to deal with the things that I don't know where my life will be in a year. I had to deal with all of that. And on top of that, I had my brother as well. And I'm not saying my brother was just another thing to deal with. But for myself, and in therapy, I had to learn how to guard myself. And this is something I felt initially quite guilty about. And then I had to make an active choice not to feel guilty about this. But I had to guard my mental health in the time that my brother was going through all of this. And I had to say sometimes, I love you and I want to be there for you. But I cannot do it right now because I am not okay right now. I am suffering. I am suffering and I need to go and take care of myself right now. And it took me a really long time to get to a point where I could go, hey, that's actually not a selfish decision. And that's actually not the wrong thing to say. It's actually what you need to do in order to survive. And the more I also realized that, and talking to my therapist, I also realized that no matter what I did or how many times I told my brother I was there for him and that I loved him and there was hope and everything, that wouldn't have changed anything. He was in such a spiral and he was sick. He was really sick. And he needed medication to work and kick in order to relieve this unfathomable depression and hopeless feeling that he was experiencing daily. Yet, unfortunately, the meds didn't work yet for him, which is horrible to me. And personally, I am still struggling with understanding how our medical system can only allow you 21 days on a good medical aid. The best medical aid plan that you get, you will only allow 21 days in a psychiatric hospital or 15 sessions with a psychologist or a psychiatrist a year. A year. And that's a good medical aid. That's the best that you get. That is the most that you will get. How is this medical system still a thing? How is this? Why do we wonder why people like my brother were not on the right medication? Because we're so hurried to get them out of a hospital. We're so worried to try and fix them quickly because the medical system is broken. And again, I want to say that I am not blaming anyone in particular. I'm not saying the medical system caused my brother to kill himself. That is not what happened. Yes, it would probably helped and possibly could have prevented it if the medical system was better, but ultimately my brother was sick. And there is a fundamental flaw how we feel about mental health in our society and how we treat people who do suffer from mental illness. That causes people to seek help too late. And then when they do ask for help, there are so many obstacles, there are so many hurdles you have to overcome in order to get the help that you deserve and that you need. that it feels like you're hopeless. Absolutely hopeless. For the past 3 years, I have seen a psychologist every week or every 2 weeks. That has been my normal. I am so privileged to have that. Very few people are in the privileged position to get that. That was offered to my brother as well, and he did see a psychologist every 2 weeks, but he felt too bad to take up more time from the psychologist because he felt that he was taking away resources from someone else, which is a ridiculous thing. And this was his personal problem, and this is not something that I blame on anyone, but this is what he has been ingrained in him by society, because there aren't enough people who help mentally ill humans. That's just not happening, and we need to change that. And part of why I'm making this video is because I want you guys to understand the mindset and the fear and almost the blame that you go through when you are experiencing these thoughts. David was a top academic student. He was first in his faculty in his first year of university. That is ridiculous. He was first in his faculty. He was a provincial triathlete. He ran marathons from the age of 17. He was head boy at his high school. He had everything perfect from an outside view, but yet he suffered from bipolar and depression. And that was something that could not just be wished away or prayed away. It is something that medication is needed for, and treatment without judgment is needed for. And it pains me to know that David was actually one of the lucky ones who received a level of treatment, and his life was extended by 9 months due to the treatment that he received. There are other people like my brother who are not as privileged to have these resources available to them, and who don't have that extra 9 months with their families and friends. I know this is controversial, and I know people feel awkward when talking about suicide, and I know people feel uncomfortable, and it is uncomfortable. It is uncomfortable to say that someone took their own life, because it is not natural. Everything in our evolutionary beings is to make us want to stay alive. And how bad does the things in your brain have to be in order for you to go against everything nature has installed in you and everything you have been told of life is good, that you want to take your own? I don't know if this video is helpful to anyone. I honestly don't. I don't know if even this abides by terms and policies that are on the internet. But what I do know is these are discussions. This video is a discussion that I've had with hundreds of people after David's passing. And sometimes people are too scared to ask questions. Why would you think that? Why would you think that death is better than life? And it is scary to have to ask that question. It is horrifying. But it is something that especially teenagers deal with. And men have a higher suicide rate than women, because as men they are told to stay strong, not to cry, not to show emotions, and not to need help. That's an added barrier for men. I'm not saying females find mental illness easier or anything, but I do know that it is easier for us to be able to get help. I do know that society is more accepting of a woman needing help with her mental health than a man. And that's horrible. It's absolutely horrible. We need to do better. We need to do better because people are dying. Suicide kills more autistic people a year than HIV does. Suicide kills more of Generation Z than HIV does. Suicide is more common in teenagers. It's the second leading cause of death after car accidents. And yet we have all these safety features for cars, but we don't spend enough time on our teenagers' mental health. It's ridiculous. How could we continue doing this? So this is a plea. This is a plea to anyone who will listen. To please have conversations with the people in your life. Tell them that you are a mental health ally. Even if they're fine, tell them that if they were to wake up one day and were to struggle with no real reason behind it, you are there for them and you will help them get help. The help that they deserve. And everyone deserves that help. So yeah, maybe this was just a ramble of a video. Maybe I'll take it down in a couple of days. Maybe YouTube will kick me off the platform. Who knows? But please, check the resources in the description box and speak up. You deserve help.